State Sports Link's Third Down Chirp is delivered by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. Visit papajohns.com today for more info.
Hello and welcome to Third Down Chirp presented by Papa John's. A rough past couple weeks for the Ball State Cardinal team, so we thought we'd mix it up. Get two new analysts in here, Paul Brown, Kevin Thurman. Guys, excited to make the debut?
Yeah, it sure is fun to be here, and fortunately, I'm not replacing any injured analysts, so just stepping in for the week. It's fun to be here.
Paul, it is great being here. And Pat, if Ball State wins over the weekend, I'm going to expect that call to be back on next week.
All right, guys, well, let's take a look at the highlights from last week's game against Temple. Ball State Cardinals taking on the Temple Owls for homecoming. Cardinals trying to get off their two straight winless streak on homecoming. Early on, Keith Wenning finding Briggs Orsbon here. The nice pass and catch, and this would set up a Steven Schott field goal, but Schott just misses it wide to the left. Cardinals fail to put points on the board. So Temple, they're trying to respond. Chester Stewart on third down feels the pressure but finds Joe Jones, who does the rest. Temple out early, 7-0. So Ball State, they're trying to respond. Keith Wenning dropping back, looking here for Briggs Orsbon again, but no such luck this time. Throws well behind him, and he gets his second INT in back-to-back games. Then Chester Stewart going deep, finds Streeter a yard short of the end zone, and Bernard Pierce would punch it in one play later, and Temple goes up 14-0, and they just start piling it on. Bernard Pierce into the end zone for the score. Pierce and Jones both going for 100 yards on the day apiece as the Cardinal front seven really just taken apart by the Temple Owls offensive line. So later in this game, Keith Wenning, he drops back, and more bad news for the Cardinals as he fumbles. Temple takes it over the football on the fumble recovery, and if you hadn't seen enough of Bernard Pierce, here's Matt Brown, the scat back, taking it in for the score. Temple wins 42-0 in dominating fashion, back-to-back blowout losses for the Cards. Now let's take a look at some of the statistics. Bernard Pierce and Matt Brown combining for a huge day. Pierce going for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. The max rushing leader in rushing touchdowns adds on to that. And for Ball State, Keith Wenning, another tough day for him. 155 yards, which wasn't terrible, but 2 more INTs. That gives him 5 in the past 2 games. And as expected, a pretty upset Pete Lembo after the game.
Offensively, we couldn't finish drives. We moved it well, but when we got into their half of the field, we couldn't seem to finish. Defensively, I think it was pretty obvious when a team that runs the ball as well as they do comes out and tries to throw it all over the place, that they certainly had a plan of attack there.
And guys, no secret, a theme to last week's game, a battle in the trenches, a battle that the Temple offensive line dominated pretty well. And
it really wasn't a surprise when you consider that Temple has 4 seniors starting on the offensive line and 1 junior. With all that experience, it's no wonder that they had 37 minutes of possession time compared to Ball State's 23. And it really opened things up for the running game for them as well. Bernard Pierce with 121 yards, that wasn't much of a surprise. But Matt Brown, 114 yards as well, their backup running back. They ran all over Ball State.
You talk about running all over Ball State, Paul. 350 rushing yards for Temple in the game. Only let Ball State get 1 sack. Also, Temple was 11 of 15 on third down. Very good third down conversion rate, thanks to that offensive line.
That offensive line guy's averaging 318 pounds. Those are some big boys. All right, it wasn't just the Temple offensive line, though, that was impressive. The Temple defense holding Ball State to its first shutout since the Iowa game last year. And now, Paul, that's his back-to-back games for the Ball State Cardinals without a touchdown. That's got to be a little bit concerning.
The Temple defense held Ball State to 81 rushing yards, but this Temple defense is first in the conference in rushing defense. So that really wasn't a surprise to me. And then you consider that Ball State, they struggled mightily against Oklahoma. But it's Oklahoma, one of the best teams in the country, and they blew out Texas in the very next week. So there's really, in my mind, no embarrassment in losing to Oklahoma and struggling against Temple, but they have to get it turned around. I think it won't be a problem. No time to panic because this is a young team. And Kevin, I think they will get things turned around. They'll bounce back.
Paul, you talked about the offensive struggles against Oklahoma. Like you mentioned, that is to be expected. You're playing the #1 team in the country. But what's not okay is when you score more points against the #1 team in the country than you do against Temple. 6 points against Oklahoma, 0 against Temple. The Cardinals had 0 red zone attempts against Temple. You're not going to score points if you're not in the red zone.
Yeah, guys, the Cardinals now have been outscored an ugly number 104-6 in the last 2 games. Ball State now 0-3 in their past 3 games at homecoming. I don't know if it's the curse of homecoming or what, but Paul, you get all these fans, these alumni back on campus for the big game. It's got to be difficult to put forth an effort like they did last Saturday.
Schubert Stadium was packed at the beginning of the game against Temple, but the Cardinals were down 28-0 at halftime, and by that time, most of the student section had already left. You consider that the team is just not playing well enough to get fans to come to the games. And it's hard to blame the fans because with such an inconsistent team, how can you expect the fans to know what they'll see when they come to the game on Saturday?
It's the big issue, Paul, is inconsistency. Cardinals 3-3 on the season, but you look at who the Cardinals have played: number 22 South Florida, number 1 Oklahoma, Temple, who could win the MAC. But it's how the games have gone. 1 touchdown, 2 field goals in the 3 losses for the Cardinals. 10 turnovers in the 3 losses, but 0 turnovers in the 3 wins. They've been outscored 141-13 in their 3 losses. That's not the same offense that we saw against Army.
Well, guys, we've talked a lot of Ball State. We've talked a lot of Temple. Let's find out how the other 11 teams in the Mid-American Conference fared this past week, presented by Fox College Sports. First, we have Buffalo taking on Ohio, 2 teams, a team that Ball State's played and a team that they're about to play.
Ohio took the lead on a 4th quarter field goal. Then they gave up a touchdown and fumbled to lose the game. They'll host Ball State, and it'll be homecoming for them on Saturday.
Then Toledo all over Eastern Michigan.
This game, not a big surprise. Eric Page set a school record for career receptions with 235.
Western Michigan taking on Bowling Green, a game that was close for a while, but that Western Michigan handled later on.
And Western Michigan ran for over 350 yards. They've got a tough test next week against Northern Illinois.
Miami, Ohio taking on Army, a team that Ball State's played before, another MAC foe for the Black Knights.
Miami scored 21 unanswered points in the second half for their first win of the season.
Then Florida International taking on Akron as Akron steps out of MAC play for a game.
And Akron allowed over 500 yards of total offense. They're 1-4 overall. They got a bye week to try to figure things out.
And finally, Northern Illinois getting back on track versus Kent State.
Northern Illinois allowed 70 total yards and got 7 sacks. Best defensive performance for the Huskies so far this season.
All right, well, while the football game didn't go exactly according to plan, if you're a fan of the Cardinal and White, the students and the alumni, they still came out in full force. Let's take a look at sights and sounds of the pregame festivities of homecoming week.
Excited to be here at homecoming. We're really pumped for the game. We've been out here since 11. We were in the parade. It's just a great day outside.
Second best day of the year other than Halloween.
It is great to be back. Just the camaraderie and just the excitement of homecoming here at Ball State is just really fun.
We graduated in 05 and we've been here every year since.
So what's your favorite part of homecoming?
The tailgating.
Is that your real hair? What's the answer? It sure is, yeah. I just got a perm last week. It's an $80 perm, and you just got to, the perm's going out of style, so I had to keep it going. How excited are you? He looks pretty excited to me.
All right, it's time for our weekly segment, What's Chirpin'? Tweet us in a question at Third Down Chirp, and you can get your question answered on this show and a free Papa John's pizza. And the winner of that pizza this week is at Ashley Spearman from Muncie, Indiana. She asks, what positives can this BSU team take from all the adversity they've been going through? Paul, what do you think?
Well, one positive that I would take from it is the Cardinals have faced a very tough schedule, and their 3 losses, the first one against South Florida, a very tough non-conference opponent, then lost at Oklahoma, one of the best teams in the country, if not the best, and then lost to Temple, one of the best teams, it seems like, in the Mid-American Conference. So 3 very difficult opponents that they've lost to. I don't think there's room to panic because, Kevin, they've lost to 3 very good teams.
It's a good point, Paul. Too early to panic. You look at dealing with adversity. There have been some injuries on the team, but players have stepped up, and that's going to lead for some good experience for when Ball State plays Toledo the day after Thanksgiving.
Well, a pivotal week coming up this week against Ohio as the Cardinals look to get back over that 500 mark. Let's see what the team has to say in preparing for their upcoming game with the Bobcats.
As far as on defense, we got to do a better job of tackling. Being in our right spots when we're supposed to, stop big plays.
We just got to find ourselves and be consistent and do the things that we know how to do, stop making mental mistakes like offside penalties and such things of that nature.
Got to stay in our coverage because that quarterback, we saw him on film today, he can run around, make things happen. So we got to make sure we stay on our coverage and not worry about the quarterback and just do our job.
All right, enough about last week. Let's focus our attention ahead towards Ohio. It's been 2 straight bad losses for the Cardinals. They go to Ohio this week, Paul. It seems like a pretty big game for the Cardinals to get their confidence back.
And one of the Cardinals who has struggled quite a bit recently is Keith Wenning. And Wenning, we talked to Coach Lembo earlier in the week, and he said he doesn't think Wenning's confidence has really been shaken at all. Wenning is a young guy, a sophomore. He's got a lot of talent. I think he'll be fine. He'll be able to bounce back. And let's remember, there are a lot of other players on the team, especially on the offense, who need to step up and help him out for him to have a good game.
Pat, you had mentioned earlier, tough 2 pass games for the Ball State Cardinals. Well, they've been outscored 104-6 in the past games. They're heading back on the road, haven't won a road game this season. 4 of the next 6 games for the Cardinals are going to be on the road, so they're going to have to figure out how to beat tough teams away from Schumann Stadium.
Well, the Cardinals have been no stranger to facing mobile quarterbacks. In fact, almost every quarterback they've faced so far has been a mobile quarterback. Tyler Tettleton for Ohio, he's another one of those guys, but you'd think hopefully at least the experience with the Cardinals playing the mobile quarterbacks would help some.
Ohio runs a no-huddle, fast-paced, option-style offense, and Tettleton is kind of the star of that offense. His first year as a starting quarterback, and to beat an offense like that, the defense for Ball State is going to have to be very fast, and they're going to have to get a good blitz on the offensive line of Ohio, try to make Tettleton throw the ball before he would like to.
Tettleton is the athlete that makes the Ohio Bobcats this season. He has 13 touchdowns with only 2 interceptions, leads the team in rushing touchdowns with 4. Ball State needs to put pressure on the offensive line, have the Ball State defensive line really show up and play well this game.
Well, you talked about he's first in the team in rushing touchdowns. He's second in attempts, so it's clear that they make him a big part of their rushing offense. All right, we're hitting game 3 of 8 now in the Mid-American Conference for the Cardinals. And, Paul, the track gets no easier for Ball State. It seems like this is a pretty important week to get the Cardinals back on track.
I look at the 6 games left on the schedule for the Cardinals, and the last 2 are against Northern Illinois and Toledo, 2 games that seem to be pretty unwinnable for the Cardinals. But this game coming up, Ohio, they're a very tough team. Don't get me wrong, very good team in the conference, but I think this is a game that Ball State can win if they play up to their potential and if the team plays, for example, like they did against Army.
You talk about being in the middle of the MAC. You've got Ohio, you've got Ball State. Both teams are 1-1 in Mid-American Conference play, and they both want to get out of the middle of the pack. This is a game that will set one team apart from the rest of the conference. It's Ohio's homecoming. It's time for Ball State to play spoiler.
Well, you talk about Ohio, a fellow Mid-American Conference foe, but not a team the Cardinals play every year. They haven't played them since 2009, so not maybe necessarily some similarities from that game, but it seems like we have some potential for some pretty intriguing matchups. Paul, who's your player to watch for the Cardinals?
Well, I think Nathan Ollie, defensive tackle, is going to have a big game for the Cardinals, and I think he will. He had a career-high 8 tackles against Temple last week. And against the spread offense that Ohio runs and quarterback Tyler Tettleton, he's going to need to help the defensive line get in there, create pressure on the quarterback, and disrupt the offense for Ohio. I think that Ollie's going to have a big game for the Cardinals.
Another player that I think is going to step up for the Cardinals this weekend, Keith Wenning. We need the Keith Wenning to show up from Army. That's who Ball State's looking for. The 24 pass completions, 324 yards, and 3 touchdown Keith Wenning. His best career game and arguably the best game the Cardinals have played since that undefeated season.
Well, I'll take the guy that Keith Wenning is going to be throwing the football to, Willie Snead, a freshman who came in last year as a big-time prospect and really delivered his first big game against Army. Struggled the past couple weeks. I think Willie Snead gets it going again versus Ohio. Well, that should wrap things up for this edition of Third Down Chirp. You can catch the show at 3 p.m. every Thursday online, or you can find it on WIPB, on Comcast, and on Fox College Sports. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Third Down Chirp and at BSU Sports Link. For Kevin Thurman, Paul Brown, I'm Pat Boylan. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.